See, now the guys do it. Why not me? It's gonna be one of those rare times. Uh, we're doing something. That's for darn sure. But are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? Oh hell no! Everybody, why not me? No, I gotta be sleep deprived. Oh good lord, there's an ugly face on there. Hey, that looks like me. Morning, fellow zombies. Are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? One of the rare sakes. I'm still trying to figure that one out myself. Okay, it's past midnight, 25 after in the morning. It's Monday, the 4th of November, 2024. The zombie. We were John C. of Roseman, California. Or if you want to get technical about it, the diary of a griever named John Weaver, which is me. Hi, guys. No, I'm not alive. I'm not awake. I'm not here. I'm still back in bed sleeping. This is filming at people's imaginations right now. So at this point, we're talking about less than 24 hours away before we get into the primary and actually the general election, where we're going to be selecting in the United States of America who's going to be more presidential in every which way, shape, or form to run our country the way we think it should be. And right now, I have no clue. None. Some candidates out there who think that the mail-in candidate is not needed. Like not putting in your ballot in the United States Postal Service, put it into their hands by putting it into a machine or into a container, and the postal person will come over there, collect the paperwork, and turn it in. And within about a week or two, you get processed. Well, I did that about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Made a video, put it on my channel. Said I was all right. Mostly is being trapped with the zeros and ones of things I need to see and constantly hear and be drowned upon. The tit for tat, the constant beep, 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 which drove me crazy anyway. And I've heard other people trying to compare, complain, and all they're doing is giving me a headache. I mean, at this time of the morning, normally a guy's supposed to be sleeping, right? This is supposed to be the sleep pattern. The circadian rhythm's so screwed up right now, it's not even funny. And yet I felt compelled to do a bit of a short intro video, still being processed and posted. And then after that, I'll process and post this thing. Okay, shout out to people I know. Probably still asleep, or maybe not. Good Lord. We're driving him crazy. Okay, to Halifax, Nova Scotia. To the Reverend Ed Travers. Morning, Rev. Yeah, I warned you. Except a lot too late anyway. On the East Coast, artist in with a letter N. Recovery. Morning, Daryl. I'm not even ever awake yet, pal. Who is? And probably the Young Turks and all their franchise out there. Brand Balanced out there. Jesse Dollarmore. So the heavy hitters I keep coming across on my feeds. Damage Report, Majority Report. All these nice, lovely reports out there. I tried not to be the independents out there. I tried just to observe everything, and I keep seeing how whopper job it is. Corporate media, I know, has always been corporate. If there was a large company owning the thing, it was corporate. So when they owned print, and then they owned radio, and then television, and then social media. So we're stuck with viewpoints left and right, biased as they are, not to mention the papers, and they're also biased as well. So we deal with the biasm all the time. But the thing is, we have to, what I kept thinking about is getting various sources just to make sure that the information is accurate. And I'm not totally biased in one particular viewpoint. But you happen to stick with one particular brand all the time and nothing else, I think you're jaundiced or just plain out stuck, trapped in the box and can't even get out of it. People scream and yell saying that you don't have an open mind. Well, this is the kind of situation we're running into regarding democracy, our viewpoints, what we're looking at these days. It's scary. It's terrifying what we're dealing with right now. It is. I hear too many people just trying to tell you how bad life is right now. I wanted you, if I'm going to be assuming a persona at this point over here, great. Here we go again. But I don't want to wake up the neighbors. I don't want to disturb these guys. So try to keep it on a low key at this point over here. So if I'm going to be adopting a persona at this point, yeah, where you coming from? You ain't kind of whippersnapper. Oh, great, here he comes again. Yeah, that's me there. You ain't kind of whippersnapper. Just call me the old chamber over here. So I'm having a hard time trying to understand what the hell you talking about. What is it with this guy having a he's going nuts at this point. He got two personalities. That's what he's got. And what you looking at? Yeah, you guys in the cameras out there and the screens just watching all this stuff. Watching an old man trying to talk his way out of things left and right. Well, yeah, right, right, right. Well, you think I like these conservative nut jobs and liberals out there? Are you kidding me? Ugh. They say, yeah, well, democracy is just democracy. That's about it. What else am I supposed to know? I'm just a common layman over here, not knowing what the hell I'm doing, except I know I don't like this person, I don't like that person, I don't like them youth. But I got to vote for one of them. Why had been just write my candidate name in there? Why don't I just put my name on there? Why don't I just put my name on there? I always wanted to be a chief lunatic of a country. Why not? Yeah, I think I'll be wandering off over here. So why that character's moseying off over there? No, basically in a nutshell, yes, we have two candidates. We are presented two candidates, but the thing is, on the ballots, there's always an option to put a third if necessary, even if it's write-in, which means that you have to do write-in, and it means that you can make your ultimate choice of who you want. Now, granted, people don't like a woman in the place because I'm hearing that on the social media, and yet you don't want an old fart who's losing his brains. And I'm also hearing that on the media. It doesn't matter if it's corporate or social or independence or whatever it is. I'm hearing them from both sides at this point over here. I got religious nut jobs out there still trying to use the power of God. There's one particular independent guy out there. He likes old fashioned telephone and claim it's the bat phone to Jesus in a way, just so he can make fun of some of these other lunatics and saying that God is speaking through them and that they are the ultimate authority and they are the ultimate voice and therefore they should be listened to. And every time I kept listening to this stuff, I just couldn't get my head wrapped around it. Why? I hear some of these other opinionated independents out there who are very strong, very opinionated, and using formulas and theories and practices decades ago. Case in point. You guys been following my videos. You know that I've been going to a community college for the past decade, off and on, part time. And this time, since I am doing caregiving duties for my dog, and she's a very frustrating old woman, but I got to tend to her anyway. So I do it online, and the course I'm taking right now is women in history. And a section I'm just trying to get through. We're dealing with feminism. We're dealing with women's rights. We're dealing with the 19th Amendment here. We're dealing with the ERA. We're also dealing with conservative movements who want things back in the 1940s and 50s thinking, dress style, but also taking the rights back away from women every which way but loose. Uh, every which way anyway. So it just kind of gets to me sometimes. I'm looking at this stuff. I'm looking at the material that's being presented to me, including there was a actions taken by one particular conservative lady against another progressive who really wanted to change the way women are viewed, are dealt with, and what they can do and can't do. And practically unlimited for them. But unfortunately, with the fear mongering going on, even back then, before my time, or just when I was too darn young to understand that these things, these forces were happening. My mother was part of it. She wasn't a hippie, but she was a part of it. My grandmother, God rest her soul, had been a suffragette as a young teenager. And they did allow teenagers during that time. And she was there to witness on that day of 19th Amendment, allowing people to have equal rights to vote, equal access. You have the rights. You have the authority. You can vote. And it was something being worked on for decades on that one. The more I keep delving into the class, the more I'm realizing how much I had missed out because there was a lot of people in there that I never even heard of that actually made a difference. I'm trying to find the 1980s and 90s and 2000 people, the women, the ladies in here making contributions. I didn't realize there was a lot more heavyweights way earlier. And when I actually learned it from my mother about my grandmother being a heavyweight, she grew up. I think when I was born in Pueblo, my grandmother was born in Tinta. Never could find out where those. Well, Pueblo, Colorado is one thing, but Tinta, Minnesota or Missouri, Minnesota, I think. My grandmother had an older sister, 2 years older. God rest both their souls. Aunt May wasn't the adventurous one, but my grandmother was. In fact, according to my family, she had made a band for herself, traveled in the Midwest and in the Rockies, made a name for herself. Back in the 30s and early 40s, she took to school teaching. One room. I think that was back in Hiawatha, Utah, because that's where my family was being raised. Had an aunt, and I had two blood uncles, two or three blood uncles, and married one, married to my mama's sister. And the adults, the uncles, went to war and came back, scarred, but they were alive. They made a contribution to history. My grandmother wasn't, but she was part of history in a way. And she was giving that information and that spirit to my mama to make her understand what part of history is all about. And current events also changed things a lot for them. And they did. It did. It did a great deal. And learning about your own family history is just as important because where you come from, what you've done, affects you today. I mean, I've had arguments with other people about how the past is not supposed to be affecting you, but it's saying it does. I've seen too many memes coming from the psyched pages at this point, trying to say that don't worry about the past, don't keep looking back at the past. I said, I'm sorry, it has to. The past affects us because it's brought us to this point where we make the decision that affects the future. I mean, all the cobblestones made with our blood, sweat, tears, and everything else had put us into where we are currently. Regardless of what we've done, we're here where we are. And now we make decisions of how tomorrow is going to be, of what we do and think about today. That's that's how I look at things these days. So what we're deciding for our fate in our country and the rest of the world, I know it's a hell of a lot of pressure when it comes time for election times. Local is one thing, but when you're talking about a national and you got everybody else yelling and screaming at you, saying you gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do this, gotta do that, yada 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 yada. Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it too many damn times. It drives me crazy. And I'm thinking, relax, guys. Yes, it's an important thing in our United States, in our country, and a lot of the countries out there having a vested interest in everything that we do here, including in interfering in election. Yeah, we've had other countries doing covert stuff, as being reported by corporate and by the independents out there who keep checking on things. So yes, we are aware of that, and yet people are still having a conniption fits over it. Some of them think it's fake news, and other times they're thinking not. Politicians are still scared to death because they don't know whether or not they're going to keep their jobs or not. Are they going to be following one particular candidate, or are they going to be following the other particular candidate? And will they keep their jobs or not? We got the midterms out in 2 years, so that's going to be affecting more seats, both in the United States Senate and also in the House of Representatives. The one particular thing that hasn't come up yet, and it's probably been brought up and knocked down too many times in history, but I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to see Puerto Rico become the 51st. I gotta get that out. 5-1. Wow. State to enter the Union. Now that would throw the maps and the calculations off, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. They have to find new seats. But just that in itself, not just being a territory, not just being a U.S. territory, but being a state recognized, that I think would have been a great thing for me to see in my lifetime. But in the current Congress we've got right now, it's going to be outgoing and changing. We're not going to have that. We're not. It's sad and it sucks because that would have been affecting everybody a great deal. We have poured billions of dollars of research money and corporate funding, but also government funding into that island, into that country, into that territory we have. I'd like to see an investment of it as being a state. I'd like to see that in my lifetime. I'd also like to see us getting a moon base on the moon, but I don't think we're going to get one in my lifetime. We already had an international space station, and within a few years, that's going to be crash and burning just like Skylab. But at least I got to see the space program in my lifetime, so that's cool. A lot of things are possible. A lot of things are scary enough. People are having conniption fits over if it's legitimate or not. Our I got to find the right terminology on this one here. The cities that we live in, the towns that we live in the United States, are they threatened by a potential stranger that comes in? And is this stranger going to be a threat or help for your community? Now, from what I kept hearing on the independents and from the corporate media, of what they keep posting out there in social media, we have to fear the stranger. When they start bringing in religion, when they start bringing in philosophies that they want people to follow because, and I can never quite understand that pause. I can never quite understand it. The reasons why. Why must we be a Christian nation? Why must I be a Christian nationalist? If we were going to be following the philosophies of Christianity at this point, of Judaism, was it ever said that this was going to be a mandatory religion for everybody to follow? Did it ever say that this must be followed or else? And yet, we're becoming like Sharia law or Islamic law in another country I know that got taken over back in '79. Forcing people to be part of a religious sect, that's not freedom. No, that's not freedom at all. I'm a constitutionalist. I had to take political science classes just to understand how the mechanism works, and it still astounds me because democracy is one of those things that Aristotle tried to teach us, the poetics of democracy, and very thick reading material. Doesn't mean I actually got through it, but I'd studied elements about it when I was taking college courses several years ago when I started going to community college on this. I didn't pay attention in classes when I was a kid because there was no relevance, there was no context, perspective, maturity. It was just something you had to learn by rote so you can put it on a Scantron, pass the class, move on to the next class. But nothing will tell you the reasons why because it was all by rote. They tried. They tried to explain it. I was looking at the blank stares of the classroom. A few kids got it. The rest of them are like, I tried. I tried. And I was watching news programs back in the '70s and '80s, mostly the '80s at that point, because I was getting a little bit more conscious of what history is all about and what politics was about. And I'm still scratching my head on that one to this day. Yeah. This week with David Brinkley, watched him. I'd watched the McLaughlin Group, watched Meet the Press, Face the Nation. Growing up as a kid, my mother was putting me in front of a newspaper. I had to see what was going on. Get the Herald Examiner, get the Daily News, get the Los Angeles, get perspective, understand, keep track of what's going on these days. Turn my nose into the news just to see what's happening. My mother and I would have side comments when things would happen, and we would be snarky to each other about things. She'd take one side, I'd take the other side, and we get snarky. But that's all right. That's all right. Because there's something for me to learn anyway. If I was going to vote, I needed to vote. I needed to know what the propositions were, what the ballot issues were, what about the candidates dealing with the local stuff all the way up to the national. My brother and I, before my brother passed away, we would get in arguments, but we would get into discussions. Mostly agree with one particular candidate, the other candidate would say on in. And right now, one of those candidates is going head to head with a woman. Back in 2016, a woman tried. She was going to be. Now, she had tried to run earlier. And she tried for one or two terms on that one. I think one term. And the incumbent won. She's out of the game, but she's still a savvy political player. That's for darn sure. Even she realizes the candidate that got in 2016 was not equipped to deal with it. No matter what kind of a sales job he hawked on people left and right. I listened and I couldn't deal with it. Didn't know how to deal with him. I thought it was a joke. My political science class, we're learning about this back in 2016. I'm getting into the first year of political science 101. The college I go to, Antelope Valley College, Lancaster, California. Our professor, our instructor, was not letting us talk with him directly about the political candidates. He wanted to teach us more about the process in itself, why it was important, and understand the history of the country and how it was formed and the basis of democracy. There was a textbook called We the People. It's out there. They got many versions of it out there. I think on our Internet Archive they got. It's downloadable. I've already got a couple of copies already. It's good resource material. Going through the information, I was learning about the California history more and more, the political ramifications. It made me question a lot of things, including about the party I was still stuck with. I mean, I know I got a choice to change it. I'm not quite sure if I want to go independent, but I sure as hell don't want to go Republican at this point because I don't think the Republican Party exists anymore. At least not the party I knew of back then. Today, it's a different thing altogether. It's no longer Lincoln's party anymore. It's not even Reagan's party anymore. It's someone else's. The same guy who's still running right now. Uh, if you happen to see anything crawling around, don't freak. It's still a bug war in this place. Let's see, later today, I've got exterminators trying to do their weekly job on this apartment complex. Yeah, Antelope Valley is inundated with these damn buggers. That's home. Okay, I had to get this off. I had to get this off my chest. We're dealing with stresses. We're dealing with fears. We're dealing with megalomanias. We're dealing with people are trying to convince us one way or another that they're right and we have to listen to them. All the information is right in front of you. I know it's a hell of a lot to think about today because tomorrow's the activity, but today's the homework, boys and girls. So if I am going to be an ad hoc professor with no letter, no credentials, no academia of any sort, but let me just give you this homework assignment, which I am not going to grade because the grading is going to be in the ballot measures. It's going to be in the candidates passing, and that is what the grade's going to be all about. Do you understand the person that you're voting for? Are you comfortable with that person? Are you comfortable with the ballot measures And if you've already voted, you've already done your job. We're talking about those who are going to be going up to the tables, going up to the booths, and actually making whatever mark it's going to be taking. Word of advice: do not, repeat, do not wear anything that resembles patriotism, flag, candidates, anything that'll be construed as electioneering. Otherwise, you're going to be running into more issues than what you can deal with. Wear something plain. Plain hat, no marks on it, no pins, no lettering. I mean, if I wear this thing, it's a school shirt. But if I actually had another shirt out there, it would say something like these two fictional characters for an old year that's already passed by. But it's still electioneering because they're two candidates. Or potentially a flightless penguin and a fur ball. There are shirts and stickers and stuff like that. Not acceptable. They'll nail your ass on that one. So my suggestion, just wear something plain. Just wear something plain. You can wear stripes if you want to, as long as it doesn't have any lettering on the damn thing. It'll attract people's attention. That way, you get in, do your job, get out. That's it. Drop off the ballot and wait with dreaded anticipation to see what happens afterwards. I had to get this off my chest. I had to do this thing, and I know the other independents are going to have fun with this one today and tomorrow. They're going to be mouthing off like crazy. I've already been seeing previous videos of disparaging remarks that independents have been going after each other with. And it looks like it's piranha fest. They're more than willing to eat their own verbally. If it's bad enough that they're going after corporate media, they're going after themselves. Isn't democracy wonderful? One little side note. I haven't been on much. I've been talking to other people on the tube, trying to get some things cleared up aside of me. It helps. One of the things I was trying to tell them about it was a series that came out back in the late 90s to early 2000s. Lasted about 8 seasons, called The West Wing. You guys have probably heard about that. Liberal political drama. And believe me, there was a lot of topics in there that are happening today, right now. Trust me, some of that stuff is pretty intense. If you guys had watched it, still try to catch it somehow, maybe you got a DVD or Blu-ray of it, or catch it on streaming. I know Amazon Prime still got it, but it does make sense. Pick the last two seasons of it deals with the campaign of different actors going to be concluding the series. They should have continued on with it. That would have added more fodder to it. That would have added more material to it that we could see. But 8 seasons was enough for everybody. But I think it was important for some people to actually look at and understand. There were technical advisors on the show that came from different administrations that helped create the format and probably the dialogue and how it was being generated on issues that were being talked about. So I would suggest you folks to do that. Meanwhile, this kid is going back to bed. It is way too damn early here on the West Coast. I should be back in bed sleeping for maybe an hour or two if I'm lucky enough. And if I am, cool. If I'm not, well, I really am going to be a zombie the rest of the day and don't get that much sleep. So I'll be keeping up with the videos as much as I can. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be doing a live tomorrow. But for right now, since it's 1 o'clock in the morning, it's time. So we'll talk later, guys. As one particular person I know who would probably give a little bit of a greeting somehow and a little bit of a farewell. I think the term is Nemultus.